On to a bit of sad news. This is kind of a bummer, and I'm, again, not sure if you're aware of this, Rock and Woody, but Coast to Coast with Art Bell. Remember that show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it lives on now. It's become Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and George Knapp sometimes does a show. They have a bunch of guest hosts. I mean, great show. Probably be on the air long after you and I have passed on to greater things. But Coast to Coast with Art Bell, I mean, I love the man. He's the whole reason I'm here. Probably, he opened me up to a whole different world of exploration and just ideas that never take a side. I always just take a look, and I've been a huge fan of him ever since. Anyway, the bad news is, Jimmy Church, yeah, he's chiming in. Mayhem RV saying he listened to old Art Bell programs on the TuneIn app. Me too, brother. Me too. I definitely do that. So anyway, Art Bell, he retired from Coast to Coast many years ago now, and then came back and did some shows here and there. And then later on, he decided to start his own show on, let's see, what's it called? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Dark Matter. Well, let me go ahead and pull that up there. Dark Matter with Art Bell, which sadly only ran for a little while. I didn't have Sirius or XM radio, but I was so excited when he came back, and it was on my list of things to do to get it. And he didn't make it 6 months. There was some kind of an issue between the company. You remember this whole?
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but I remember there was an issue between him and.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same way it happened with Howard Stern.
Yeah. So they yanked him and they replaced him with Coast to Coast, which is still a great show. I'm not going to say bad things about it at all. So Dark Matter went away. Art had to take an entire, I think it was a whole year off of radio. And he really wanted to be on the air at that point because he had signed a non-disclosure or non-compete clause, which is something that's fairly normal in radio and TV, but it just sucked. So he left, and then he came back later on with the show, Midnight in the Desert, which I did subscribe to online. It was a great show. It was available. Initially, it was just supposed to be available as a podcast or a radio broadcast over the internet, but it came back and ended up being picked up by quite a few terrestrial stations. A lot of AM stations heard the name Art Bell and knew it was a winner. So he did come back. Unfortunately, again, it only lasted, I think, maybe 6 or 8 months. And he departed. And unfortunately, as we all know, Art's no longer with us. He's passed on. However, the show lived on for a long time with this young lady here, and that's Heather Wade, I'm sorry. Heather Wade was on Midnight in the Desert, and again, I stayed subscribed with her. When Art died, and I don't know how many of you are Art Bell fans, but when Art passed away, Heather had a bit of a mental breakdown, it appears, and left the show for a while. I think she came back and maybe did 1 or 2 more shows, but people who were paying the bills, they had to leave. I mean, they had to move on. They had to make money, and Heather was not a reliable source, so they went ahead and fired her. And
that would be a tough thing to do, especially behind Art Bell to take over his show. I'm sure he was a mentor to her or something,
Yeah, it was really sad because, yeah, that was kind of love her or hate her. And I know a lot of people out there had mixed feelings about Heather, but I listened to her show for 3 years, but. Jason Kane saying Art was the man, but now it's my turn. I don't know, man. This show's not going as quickly as the last show. I guess maybe not having as many people chiming in is slowing things down. But anyway, Heather's a great gal, so she bailed. I mean, they had to let go of her, so they got rid of Heather, and then she moved on to herself. She started another little show of her own called The Kingdom of Nye. And those of you who are familiar with Art Bell know From the Kingdom of Nye. Right, so she grabbed her own show, and she was on that Parnup station that Art Bell owned personally at 96.5 or something like that. I can't remember what station ID it was, but she was on that. But again, the poor lady apparently has some mental issues, so she's not able to stick with it. So it looks like, and again, I was getting ready to subscribe because I missed her. I enjoyed the show, just like I enjoy all shows like this. But she's no more, man. So she's gone. I think they're just going to go back to music at that time slot. So your thoughts on that?
Play old shows. That's what they should do. I mean, it was Art Bell. It's very hard to come behind him. In my opinion, when he went, that should have gone with him.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. I've got it's real hard feelings, man. It's just tough. I love Coast to Coast. I love Art Bell. I love all the work he's done. And I just love the whole genre. I think, you could sit down and listen to an AM station that's got Rush Limbaugh on it or Sean Hannity or any of these talking heads that talk politics, and you'll find your blood pressure slowly start to boil And once it reaches a full boil, it tends to stay there week after week, year after year. The beauty of Art Bell, the beauty of Coast to Coast, the beauty of all those shows, and hopefully what y'all will come to find here if we continue to make it, and I hope we will, is that we're just talking about stuff, man. And and some nights you may not find that much interest in it, but other nights you might be glued to the radio or to YouTube, as it were. So, but that's my feelings on that. You have any more thoughts you'd like to share on that?
No, I think we're pretty well covered now.
Right on, right on. Well, let's see here. Time to move on to a little bit scarier news. Michael Sean's chiming in. Still catches Coast to Coast some nights. Dude, Coast to Coast, like I'm too old. I don't stay up that late anymore. But if I'm ever on long drives and stuff like that and Coast to Coast is on, I know a lot of people are kind of bagging on Coast to Coast and say that George Norrie and all that crew there, they just kind of, well, I've heard one guy say it's turned into nothing but an infomercial. And I don't know, guys. I got to say, I still find a lot of cool information on there.
I found when I was a couple years ago, I did a lot of overnight jobs, so I listened to it every night. And what I found is I almost felt like George Norrie was getting lazy because he had a guest host every other time, and it was actually a little disappointing, in my opinion.
I think George Norrie.
Yeah,
I think the problem is he's just getting old. I mean, it's
and that could be it too.
Honestly, I know he dyes his hair and he looks, pretty much the way he did 20 years ago.
Eric, I dye my hair. What do you say?
What? Oh, jeez, maybe I need to start. Hello, Eric. You only look 50 instead of 150. Good job. So, anyway, I think that might have something to do with it. But George Knapp and is not bad. And who is it? Jimmy Church? I don't know that I've heard him, but I like some of the guests though. Some of them are a little flat, but I still like the people they bring on. They get some of the top folks to come on the show. Obviously, it's the premier show, so.
And what I brought it up with the Mars, because one night he had some guy on by Andrew Biasario, and I'm sure people out there know this guy's name because he was huge. He's tried to run for president, but he was the one who was talking about going to Mars, and he was part of the time travel project, and so was Barack Obama. And he had this whole, I swear to God, if he was lying, he sat there and lied to himself in the mirror to make himself believe it.
Yeah.
I went home. I thought my wife was going to divorce me because she thought I had gone nuts telling her this story. But anytime I think about Mars, I can't help but think about that. When you talk about, are we already there? Are we not? It just makes it very interesting.
It's good to expand the mind. Yeah,
that's right.
We got Frogman chiming in. Sorry he's late. Trying to get used to the new format. Sorry, Frogman. It's it's still working out the kinks, but we're here, and I'm glad to have you on there. If y'all want to drop comments, or again, if somebody wants to get brave and try to give us a call and join the conversation live via Skype, it's live at the Midnight Cafe. You can see it right there in the little corner there, and by all means, join the conversation.